In a small, quiet village nestled among the rolling hills, there lived a young woman named Lily. She had always known that life in her town would be simple, and while there was comfort in the familiarity of her surroundings, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to life waiting for her. Lily's family had lived in this village for generations. It was a close-knit community where everyone knew each other, and the days passed slowly, almost like a dream that never changed. Lily's parents were kind and loving, but they were also old-fashioned. They believed that a woman's place was at home, caring for her family, doing the same tasks every day, and getting married to a local man, just as their ancestors had done. While Lily loved her parents and respected their traditions, she had always felt like there was more for her outside the boundaries of her small town. She wanted to experience the world, to find something beyond the routines that shaped her life. She wanted a life of her own, a chance to explore the possibilities she had only read about in books or heard about from travelers passing through the village. But the idea of leaving was a difficult one. She knew it would break her mother's heart to see her go, and her father would be disappointed. They had always assumed she would stay and help with the family farm. Still, there was a pull in her heart that she couldn't ignore. It was a feeling of longing, a desire for something different, something more exciting, more fulfilling. Every time she looked out over the village, her heart would race as she imagined the vast world waiting for her, just beyond the hills. One evening, after a long day of working in the fields, Lily sat by the window of her small room, looking out at the stars. She remembered stories from her childhood, stories of women who had traveled far away, who had gone on adventures, or who had found happiness in places she had never imagined. It was in these quiet moments that she allowed herself to dream of a life where she could be more than what her village expected of her. It was then that Lily heard about something she had never considered before, a way for women like her to change their lives. Her best friend Sarah had overheard a conversation in town about mail-order brides. The idea sounded strange at first, almost unbelievable. But as Sarah explained the concept, Lily's curiosity began to grow. The idea of finding a husband from another place, someone who lived far away and could offer her a different kind of life, seemed like a fantasy. However, Lily's desire for change was strong enough to keep her interested. The more Lily thought about it, the more appealing the idea became. The thought of leaving the small village and starting anew with someone she had never met was both frightening and exciting. For weeks she couldn't stop thinking about it. She had always been an idealist, someone who believed in the possibility of love, even in the most unlikely of circumstances. A mail-order bride seemed like a chance to create a life for herself, away from the confines of the village. Lily spent several days searching through old newspapers and magazines in the village library. She read about men from faraway lands who were seeking wives, men who were kind, hardworking, and looking for someone to build a future with. The more she read, the more she became convinced that this might be the answer to her dreams. The men, many of whom lived in cities or even on farms in countries across the ocean, were offering not just marriage, but the promise of a new life, a life that was different from everything Lily had known. After much thought and hesitation, Lily made the decision. She would write a letter to one of these men. She chose a man named Henry, a farmer from the United States. His letter had been one of the most heartfelt, full of warmth and sincerity. He described his farm, his hopes for the future, and his desire to find a woman to share his life with. Henry sounded perfect. He was kind, respectful, and seemed to understand the importance of love and companionship. He had shared his dreams, and Lily found herself imagining what it might be like to share a life with him. Writing the letter wasn't easy. She wasn't sure exactly what to say, but she poured her heart into it. She spoke of her life in the village, of her hopes and dreams, of her desire for adventure, and a future filled with purpose. She mentioned her love for nature, her willingness to work hard, and her belief in the power of love to transform lives. The letter took several days to write, and when it was finally ready, Lily felt both nervous and excited. She sealed the envelope and sent it off, not knowing what would come of it, but feeling a sense of hope that she hadn't felt before. Days turned into weeks, and the anticipation began to build. Lily found herself checking the mail every day, hoping for a response. She knew that Henry might not write back, that the idea of someone from so far away wanting to marry her might seem too strange. But each day she held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, her dream of something bigger than the life she had known was about to come true. Then, one day, a letter arrived. It was from Henry. He had received her letter and was thrilled to hear from her. His response was kind and thoughtful, just as she had hoped. Henry shared more about his life, about his farm, and his desires for the future. He spoke of his hopes that she might come to live with him, to build a life together. The letter was everything Lily had imagined and more. She felt a rush of emotions as she read his words, feeling both joy and excitement that this new chapter of her life was beginning to take shape. They exchanged letters for several months. Each letter brought them closer together, and Lily felt herself falling in love with the man she had never met. She imagined what it would be like to live with him, to work alongside him on the farm, and to share a future filled with possibilities. There were challenges, of course. Doubts and fears crept in, especially when she thought about leaving everything she had ever known. But the idea of a new life, a fresh start, kept her going. Finally, after months of letters, Henry proposed. He asked her to come to the United States and marry him. It was a dream come true. Lily's heart swelled with happiness as she realized that everything she had hoped for was finally within reach. She began to make plans for her journey, excited and nervous at the same time. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to take the leap. The day she left the village was one of mixed emotion: sadness, excitement, fear, and hope. But as she boarded the ship, she felt certain that her life was about to change forever. The journey was long and difficult, but Lily couldn't wait to meet Henry in person. She imagined what he would look like, how their lives would unfold together, and the future they would build. The closer she got to her destination, the more excited she became. She was finally leaving her small town behind and stepping into a new world, one that held the promise of everything she had ever dreamed of. Little did she know that her arrival at the station would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her life, but not in the way she had imagined. The long journey across the ocean had been exhausting, and the excitement that had kept Lily going during the long months of waiting and traveling now felt like a heavy burden. She had spent days on the ship, and although she had met some friendly fellow travelers, there was always the feeling of being alone in the crowd. Each day, the realization that she was leaving behind her home, her family, and everything familiar became more real. It was a strange mix of emotions: fear, hope, and a little sadness, all swirling in her heart. But the thought of meeting Henry kept her going. Every time she felt the weight of the journey, she would remind herself of the dreams they had shared in their letters. The life they had planned together felt like a bright light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. In her mind, she saw the farm she had only heard about, the fields stretching out as far as the eye could see, and Henry waiting there with open arms, just as he had promised. She imagined the quiet evenings, sitting together in front of a warm fire, talking about their day, building their life one step at a time. She dreamed of the family they would have, a life far different from the one she left behind. Finally, the ship docked in a busy port, and Lily could hardly contain her excitement. She was so close now. The air felt different here, thick with the sounds of people speaking in unfamiliar languages, the smell of salt water mixing with the scent of the city's streets. She stepped off the ship, feeling both overwhelmed and invigorated by the bustling atmosphere around her. For the first time in weeks, she felt the weight of her decision settle deep into her bones. There was no turning back now. She had been given instructions on where to meet Henry, a specific station in the heart of the city. Lily couldn't help but smile as she followed the signs to the waiting area. She imagined him standing there, tall and strong, just as he had described himself in his letters. He would be looking out for her, his eyes scanning the crowd for the woman he had been writing to. She imagined the moment their eyes met for the first time. How wonderful it would be to finally see him in person, to know that all the words in their letters had been building toward this moment. The station was crowded with people coming and going, rushing to their destinations. The air was filled with noise, the shouts of street vendors selling their goods, the sound of train whistles echoing in the distance, and the chatter of travelers from all walks of life. Lily stood at the entrance, scanning the crowd for a sign of Henry, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt like her whole life had been building toward this moment, and yet, in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Her gaze wandered over the faces of the people around her, searching for a man she had only seen in pictures. She had imagined this moment so many times. Henry standing there, waiting for her, a smile on his face, maybe holding a sign with her name on it, just as she had seen in the movies. But there was no sign, no familiar face. Her stomach twisted with a mix of disappointment and confusion. Was he running late? Had something gone wrong? Time seemed to slow as Lily stood there, feeling a bit lost in the chaos of the station. She started to wonder if maybe she had misunderstood the meeting place. Had she gotten the time wrong? The thought made her nervous, but she reminded herself that Henry would be looking for her too. He must be close. As she waited, a man approached her. He was tall, with a rugged appearance, and dressed in clothes that didn't seem to fit in with the others at the station. He wore a thick coat even though the weather was mild, and his face was partially obscured by a hat that shadowed his eyes. Something about him seemed off, but Lily didn't think much of it at first. She had been so focused on finding Henry, and this man didn't look like anyone she knew. He didn't have the familiar warmth in his eyes that Henry had in the photos. Still, something about his presence caught her attention. He stepped closer, and to her surprise, he spoke to her in a tone that was more familiar than she expected. "Are you Lily?" he asked. Her heart skipped a beat. Could this be him? Was this really Henry? But no, something about him didn't feel right. This man's face seemed unfamiliar, his mannerisms different from the gentleman she had corresponded with for months. She studied his face, trying to place him, but it wasn't Henry. He was not the man she had imagined in her mind. "Yes, I'm Lily," she replied hesitantly, trying to hide her confusion. Her mind raced as she tried to piece together the situation. Why was this man speaking to her? Where was Henry? The man looked at her with a strange expression, as though he were waiting for her to say something else. After a moment, he took off his hat, and that's when Lily's heart sank. The stranger's face didn't belong to Henry, but there was something else that took her by surprise. His eyes, cold and calculating, were not the warm, kind eyes she had envisioned in her dreams. "I'm sorry, I'm not Henry," the man said, his voice a little too calm for Lily's comfort. "But I am his brother." Lily's world suddenly shifted. What was happening? Why wasn't Henry here? Who was this man? She felt a wave of confusion wash over her, her thoughts racing as she tried to understand the situation. "I know this is confusing," the man continued, his voice laced with an awkwardness that made Lily uncomfortable. "But Henry, he passed away before you arrived. I was the one writing you the letters. I promised him I would meet you." The words took a moment to sink in. Henry was dead? The man she had written to, the one she had imagined a life with, was gone? It felt like the ground had been ripped from under her feet. How could this happen? She had no idea how to react. Her mind swirled with disbelief and shock. The man, and his name was Jack, and tried to explain, but Lily's head was spinning. He had continued the correspondence out of respect for his late brother, he told her. He had promised Henry that he would bring Lily to the United States, and so here she was. The man was kind enough, but it wasn't the person she had imagined. It wasn't the person she had written to. Lily tried to collect her thoughts. This wasn't the fairy tale she had dreamed of. This wasn't how it was supposed to be, and yet here she was, standing in front of a stranger in a foreign land, far from everything she had ever known. She had come so far, and now she was faced with a choice: return home, or continue with a man who was not the one she had come for. The bustling noise of the station seemed to fade away as Lily struggled to find the right words. What was she supposed to do? How could she make sense of all this? Lily's heart raced as the shock of the stranger's words began to settle in. She stood there in disbelief, her mind struggling to catch up with what Jack had just told her. Henry was dead? The man she had written to, the one whose letters had filled her heart with hope, was no longer alive. She felt a wave of confusion wash over her. This wasn't the story she had imagined. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. She had dreamed of meeting Henry, of starting a new life with him. But now she was standing before a man she didn't know, and everything she had hoped for seemed to crumble in an instant. Jack could see the confusion in her eyes, and he took a step closer, his voice softer now. "I know this is a lot to take in, Lily. I understand how you must feel. But I promise you, I never intended to deceive you. I just wanted to honor my brother's wish to bring you here. I never expected it to turn out like this." Lily swallowed hard, her mind racing. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. She had come so far, put so much trust into Henry's words, and now it felt like all of it had been for nothing. What was she supposed to do now? Go back home? Or stay with a man who wasn't the one she had imagined? She felt lost, unsure of what step to take next. Jack seemed to sense her hesitation and continued, "Look, I know this is difficult, but I will do everything I can to make sure you feel comfortable. You don't have to make any decisions right now. You can take your time. But I will make sure you're safe and taken care of. I'll show you around the town and get you settled in. I'll do everything my brother would have done." But as Jack spoke, Lily felt a growing sense of unease. His words were kind, but they couldn't undo the shock of what she had just learned. She wanted to believe him, to trust that he was being honest, but how could she? She had come here for Henry, not for Jack. Her heart had been set on a life with the man she had spent months corresponding with. And now all of it seemed like a distant dream. "I don't know what to think," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is all so much to process." "I understand," Jack replied, his voice full of empathy. "I can only imagine how you feel. You must be exhausted after such a long journey. Why don't we get you some rest? We'll have some time to talk more later, but for now you need a break." Lily nodded, still too stunned to argue. She had no idea what the right decision was, but she knew she couldn't make it in that moment. Her emotions were all over the place: confusion, fear, sadness, and even anger. She had trusted Henry, and now she was left with a stranger who claimed to be his brother. The life she had dreamed of seemed to be slipping away, and she didn't know how to hold on to it. Jack led her to a nearby carriage, and they rode in silence to a house on the outskirts of the city. It was a small, modest home, nothing like the grand mansion she had imagined. But it was cozy, and the warmth of the fire inside was inviting. Lily sat down in a chair by the hearth, her mind still reeling from the conversation. Jack busied himself with preparing tea, his movements steady and reassuring. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling of discomfort that lingered in the air between them. She stared into the flickering flames, her thoughts racing. Could she stay here? Could she build a life with this man who wasn't the person she had come for? She had always dreamed of a fresh start, of a love that would change her life, but now she was trapped in a situation that felt like a cruel twist of fate. She had imagined a future with Henry, one that was full of promise and hope. But now that future was gone, replaced by uncertainty and doubt. When Jack returned with the tea, he placed a cup in front of her and sat down across from her. "I know this isn't what you expected," he said softly, "but I can tell you that I'm not here to cause you any harm. I want to make sure you're happy, even if it's not with Henry. I want to help you find a way to move forward." Lily looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of confusion and sadness. She didn't know what to say. How could she move forward when the future she had imagined had been shattered? And yet part of her was drawn to Jack's sincerity. He wasn't the man she had come for, but he seemed genuine, even if he was a stranger to her. He had cared enough to continue the letters, to bring her here, to honor his brother's wishes. But that didn't change the fact that it was Henry she had dreamed of, not him. "I don't know if I can do this," Lily said, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can stay here with you. I came here for Henry and now he's gone. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." Jack's expression softened and he reached out to take her hand. "I understand, and I'm not asking you to forget about Henry. I know how much he meant to you, but you don't have to make any decisions right now. You can take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere, and I'll respect whatever choice you make." Lily looked down at their hands, her thoughts swirling. Part of her wanted to go back home, to return to the safety of the life she had left behind. But another part of her knew that she couldn't go back to the way things were. The world had changed for her, and it wasn't just about Henry anymore. It was about her own journey, her own future. She had come here seeking a new life, and now she had to figure out what that life would look like. For a long time, there was silence between them. Lily took small sips of her tea, trying to steady her nerves, trying to make sense of it all. She couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal, but at the same time, she felt an unexpected pull toward Jack. He wasn't Henry, but he was offering her something, a chance to build a life, even if it wasn't the one she had imagined. Finally, Jack spoke again. "I know this is hard, but if you decide to stay, I'll make sure you're happy here. I'll help you find your place. You won't be alone." Lily looked at him, her heart heavy with uncertainty. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. Her life had already changed, and there was no turning back. She had to make a choice, and it wasn't going to be easy. But whatever she decided, she knew she had to find the strength to move forward. even if it meant facing an uncertain future with a man she had never planned to meet. As she stared into the fire, Lily felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. The life she had dreamed of was gone, but perhaps there was a new dream waiting for her, one that she would have to build, step by step, with someone who wasn't the man she had expected. The road ahead was unclear, but it was hers to navigate, and for the first time since arriving, Lily felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could still find happiness. The days following Jack's revelation passed slowly, like the quiet, hazy moments between dawn and full daylight. Lily had barely slept, and the mix of emotions swirling inside her made it difficult to focus on anything else. The future she had imagined, a life with Henry, was now nothing more than a dream slipping through her fingers. It felt as though the ground beneath her had shifted, and she was standing on uncertain soil. Still, there was no turning back. The decision was made. She was here in a foreign land, far away from everything she had ever known, and there was no way to go back. Jack, sensing her unease, tried his best to be patient. He understood that she needed time. His presence, though reassuring, wasn't enough to erase the heartbreak that lingered in her heart. He had promised to show her around the town to help her adjust, but every part of her still felt out of place. She missed her home, the familiar faces of her family, the small village that had shaped the person she was, yet part of her knew that she couldn't go back to that life. It had been a life of limitation, a life where dreams and ambitions had no room to grow, the life she had come here to create, a life of change, of adventure, of something more, had to start somewhere. And it had to start now. The first few days in Jack's small house were quiet. Lily spent her time unpacking her things, sorting through the few belongings she had brought with her. The house was simple but cozy. It was a far cry from the grand home she had imagined in her letters with Henry, but there was something comforting about its smallness. It was a place where she could begin to rebuild her life, even if she wasn't entirely sure what that life would look like yet. One morning, after a restless night, Jack suggested they go for a walk around the town. "It might help clear your mind," he said gently, "and it'll give you a chance to see the place where I live. It's not much, but I think you'll like it." Lily hesitated at first. She wasn't sure what she would find comforting in a place that wasn't her own, but she agreed. There was something about Jack's quiet persistence that made her feel like he genuinely wanted to help her. She had seen his kindness in the way he had cared for her when she first arrived, despite the difficult situation they both found themselves in. As they walked through the town, Lily couldn't help but notice how different everything was. The buildings were more spaced out than the tightly packed homes she was used to. The roads were wider, with dusty paths leading to various shops and businesses. The air smelled different here too, with the scent of freshly baked bread coming from a bakery down the street, and the faint aroma of wildflowers carried by the wind. The people in the town were friendly but distant. They nodded and waved as Jack and Lily passed by, but no one stopped to ask who she was or why she had come. It was a strange feeling, being in a place where she didn't know anyone, where no one knew her. It made her feel small and insignificant in a way she hadn't expected. She had always been part of a community back home, where everyone knew each other and cared for one another. Here, she was just another stranger. Jack showed her the local market, a busy area where vendors sold fresh produce, handmade goods, and a variety of other items. Lily was amazed by the colors and the smells. She had never seen so much in one place, and it felt like a world apart from her village. The hustle and bustle were both exciting and overwhelming. It was a place of opportunity, where people from all walks of life came together to trade and exchange stories. It felt alive in a way that the quiet corners of her village never had. As they moved from stall to stall, Jack pointed out some of the local specialties: freshly grown vegetables, hand-woven blankets, and colorful pottery. "This is the heart of our town," he explained. "People here work hard and they take pride in what they do. I think you'll find that there's a real sense of community here, even though it's not the same as the village you're used to." Lily nodded, though she didn't feel a deep connection to the town just yet. She was still too lost in her own thoughts, still trying to figure out where she fit into this new world. The dream of a life with Henry seemed so far away now, and Jack, as kind as he was, couldn't replace the man she had once hoped for. Still, there was something in his words that stayed with her. He was offering her a chance, not a perfect one, but a chance nonetheless. A chance to find something new, to create a new life for herself, even if it wasn't the one she had planned. Over the following days, Jack took her to visit some of the farms surrounding the town. Lily had never seen fields as vast as these, stretching out in all directions, the soil rich and fertile. She could see the hard work that went into farming, the long hours of labor under the sun. But there was also a sense of pride in the way the crops grew. She realized that despite her initial disappointment, she could find peace here. It wasn't the life she had expected, but it was a life that held its own kind of beauty. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned a brilliant shade of orange, Jack and Lily sat on the porch of the house looking out at the fields. The air was cool and the sounds of the evening, the chirping of crickets and the soft rustling of leaves, filled the silence. Jack had been talking about the future, about the town and the work that needed to be done. Lily listened, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't help but wonder what her future would look like now. Would she ever be able to let go of the life she had imagined with Henry? Or would she find a way to embrace this new life with Jack, to create something real and lasting? "You know," Jack said, breaking her thoughts, "I know this has been hard for you. I know you came here for Henry, and I wish things could have been different. But I want you to know that you don't have to figure everything out right away. I'm not asking for anything from you. I just want you to be happy, Lily." His words were simple, but they struck a chord deep within her. For the first time since her arrival, Lily felt like someone understood her. Jack wasn't asking her to forget Henry, or to pretend that everything was fine. He was giving her space to figure out what she wanted, what was best for her. "Thank you," Lily said quietly. "I don't know what the future holds, but I think I'm starting to see that maybe it's not about finding the life I thought I would have. Maybe it's about creating something new." Jack smiled, and for the first time Lily could see a spark of hope in his eyes. "I think you're right." The days began to feel less heavy, and while Lily still had moments of doubt, there was something shifting inside her. She wasn't sure if she was ready to fully embrace her new life, but she was beginning to accept it. Jack wasn't the man she had dreamed of, but he was kind and patient, and he was giving her the space she needed to find her own way. Lily wasn't sure where this journey would lead her, but for the first time since arriving, she felt a glimmer of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, she could build a life here. Not the life she had imagined with Henry, but a life that was hers, built on her own terms. The road ahead was still unclear, but with each step she felt a little more confident that she could find her way. The days passed by slowly, but with each one, Lily felt something inside her begin to change. The confusion and doubt that had initially overwhelmed her were now starting to ease, replaced by a quiet sense of acceptance. She had come to this strange foreign land with a dream in her heart, a dream that had once seemed so clear and so full of hope, but that dream had been shaken to its core, and she had been forced to let go of what she thought her future would look like. What she hadn't expected, though, was that another kind of future was waiting for her, one that she could create for herself. The first few weeks had been difficult, as she struggled with the loss of the life she had imagined with Henry. But slowly, she began to see her new surroundings in a different light. The town was small, but it was full of potential. The people here were hardworking and kind, though a little distant. They went about their lives with a quiet strength, each person contributing to the community in their own way. Lily had never seen such dedication before. It was a kind of honesty in the way people worked, the way they cared for their homes and families. She admired that. Jack had been patient with her, never pushing her to make decisions or try to forget her past. He let her take her time, and that made all the difference. There was no rush, no pressure. He had shown her around the town, introduced her to a few people, and even invited her to help out at the local market. At first, she had hesitated, unsure if she was ready to take part in anything. But slowly, the idea of becoming part of this new place started to feel less intimidating. Maybe this could be her new home. Maybe she could build a life here, even if it wasn't the one she had expected. One afternoon, Jack invited her to visit his farm, which was a few miles outside the town. The farm was modest, but it had a certain charm to it. There were rows of crops growing in neat lines, and a few animals roamed around freely, grazing on the grass. The farm was a peaceful place, with the quiet hum of nature filling the air. Jack showed her how he worked the land, explaining the simple but essential tasks that needed to be done to keep the farm running smoothly. It was hard work, but Jack seemed content with it, and Lily admired the way he cared for his animals and plants. As they worked together that day, Lily began to feel a sense of connection to the land. She had grown up in a village where farming was a part of life, but it was always something that others did. Now, with Jack's guidance, she found herself enjoying the work. There was something deeply satisfying about planting seeds, tending to the crops, and seeing them grow. It was a slow process, but it was also a rewarding one. With every task she completed, Lily felt a little more at peace with herself, as though the act of nurturing something, whether it was a plant or her own sense of belonging, was helping her heal. That evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a soft shade of pink, Jack and Lily sat on the porch of the farmhouse looking out over the fields. The air was cool, and the sound of birds chirping in the distance created a soothing atmosphere. It was moments like this that Lily had come to appreciate. The world was simple here, but in that simplicity, there was a kind of beauty that she hadn't fully understood until now. "I never thought I would end up here," Lily said softly, her voice reflecting the quiet contemplation that had filled her thoughts. "I never imagined my life would take such a turn. But I think I'm starting to see that maybe it's not about what I had planned. Maybe it's about what I can make of what I have now." Jack nodded, his gaze never leaving the horizon. "That's all any of us can do. Life doesn't always go the way we expect it to. But that doesn't mean we can't find happiness along the way. Sometimes happiness comes from the unexpected places." Lily looked over at Jack, her heart full of gratitude. He had been kind to her, not in the way she had imagined, but in a way that mattered more than she could have ever expected. He hadn't tried to replace Henry in her heart. Instead, he had given her the space and the time she needed to process everything, without pressure. And now, as she sat here on the porch, watching the world around her slowly fade into twilight, she realized that her heart was no longer filled with just sadness and disappointment. It had room for something else now: hope. As the weeks turned into months, Lily found herself becoming more comfortable with the rhythms of life in the town. She spent her mornings helping Jack with the farm, and in the afternoons she would visit the market or spend time with the people who had slowly become familiar to her. It wasn't the life she had planned, but it was a life that had started to feel like her own, and in that quiet, unexpected way, it was becoming enough. Jack and Lily had developed a routine, and though it wasn't glamorous, it was steady. They worked side by side, learning from one another, sharing stories and laughter. There was something deeply satisfying about the simple pleasures of their days. The feeling of the earth between their fingers, the laughter shared over a warm meal, the quiet moments of understanding. Lily found herself growing fond of Jack, not because he had replaced Henry, but because he had given her something important, a sense of belonging, and a chance to create a new future. One day, as they worked together in the fields, Lily realized something that took her by surprise. She wasn't just building a life here for herself. She was starting to care about the future she was creating with Jack. She wasn't sure where their journey would take them, but she felt a sense of peace that hadn't been there before. She could still remember the pain of losing Henry, but that pain no longer had a grip on her. She had learned to let go of the past, to accept the present, and to embrace the possibility of what lay ahead. Later that evening, as they sat together on the porch, Jack turned to her and said, "You know, I never expected this either. I never thought I would find someone like you, someone who could help make this place feel like home. I'm glad you stayed." Lily smiled, her heart warm with a quiet happiness she hadn't known she could feel. "I'm glad I stayed too," she said softly. "I think I'm starting to see that sometimes the life you end up with is better than the one you had planned." The sun dipped below the horizon, and the evening settled into a peaceful silence. As Lily sat there, her thoughts no longer clouded by uncertainty or fear, she realized that she had found something far more valuable than the life she had originally imagined. She had found a sense of belonging, a place where she could grow, not just in the work she did, but in the person she was becoming. The road ahead was still uncertain, but Lily knew for the first time since she had arrived that she was ready to walk it.